Hello and welcome to another edition of the Blood Red Morning Bulletin. My name is Emmet Gates and today I'm joined by my fellow Liverpool.com colleague Ben Bocsak. And Ben, we're coming off less than 24 hours after what would hardly be described as a vintage Liverpool performance against Chelsea. Um, it was a particularly comical match, I would say. Low in quality, entertaining, but low in quality. Definitely two teams that were low in confidence, you would have to say. What was your opinion on the game itself, Liverpool's performance, and where do you think things stand in terms of the club making it into the Champions League places at this point now with 10 games remaining?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I would say the game itself, probably not to the neutral, but from a Liverpool perspective, it was always going to be interesting to see how Liverpool reacts after Manchester City and whether there was going to be a reaction. Obviously, Klopp made fairly wholesale changes as well. I think him and Jordan Henderson both spoke about the attitude being better in this game. I mean, it was always going to have to be I mean, you can't get any worse than Manchester City. So the attitude was always going to be improved. But I still don't think it was enough. I mean, on another day, I think Chelsea could have and maybe should have won this game. They had plenty of chances. I know Liverpool had probably, I think, more shots on target, but in terms of XG value, Chelsea definitely had the better of the chances, and obviously that was that fortunate moment when VAR disallowed Havertz's goal, rightfully so. Of course, it was handball, but I do think it was. I mean, in the context of things, this was probably a more reserve lineup. Although I hesitate to say that word because you still had pretty quality players in there like Darwin Nunez and etc. But it was more of a second string lineup for Liverpool, and to on any other I think season to go to Stamford Bridge and get a draw is a good result. But in the context of this season, in the context of what happened at the weekend, in the context of playing against this Chelsea, um, it I think it will be a disappointing result overall.
And as you made the point, Chelsea Chelsea had a lot of chances, and you do think that if they had a striker, any striker that knew how to find the back of the net, Liverpool could have been looking at a 3 or 4 nil defeat because João Felix had a couple of chances. I know Kai Havertz had a chance. Reece James had a goal disallowed. I mean, it was rightfully disallowed, but like Chelsea got in behind Liverpool's defence so many times, and if they had any half decent striker, it could have been another 3 or 4 nil defeat. You know, for the second consecutive game. Like it was worrying how easily Chelsea were getting in behind Liverpool's defence.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can't disagree. It was the game itself. I think the performance was not what we're used to from Liverpool. It was just disappointing. I mean, I know, as I said, Klopp said it was the mentality was there, but I didn't see it myself. I wasn't really impressed with the reaction. It was just a very meek, very tepid performance. It felt and that's been the case for Liverpool for the whole season really when it comes to especially playing away from home. I mean, this was only their 13th point away from home in I think 14 away matches or 15 away matches, and I think it's 15. 13 points from a possible 45 away from home. That is something of a concern. As good as Liverpool have been playing at Anfield, where they've only lost once in the Premier League, away from home, it's been a completely different matter.
Yeah, exactly. And you do feel like if they don't start picking up wins on the road, you know, making the top four, how do you assess Liverpool's chances of making the top four now? Obviously, there's 10 games left. Can they really do it? on current form, you'd have to say no. Like Liverpool. I mean, at the minute they can't win, but they can't put a string of victories together. It's they beat Man United 7-0, and then the next week they lose to Bournemouth. So it is like, do you really think that Champions League is a realistic possibility at this point?
I mean, I think it's certainly slipping away from Liverpool's grasp. A lot will hinge on, I think, the game tonight between Manchester United and Brentford. Obviously, United have a chance of going 10 points clear of Liverpool and going to fourth place. I mean, a 10-point gap, even with 10 games to go, that's pretty unprecedented in terms of being able to pull that back. So it would be very slim in terms of Liverpool making that Champions League if United do win. If United maybe draw or lose to Brentford, I don't know how likely that is. They are playing at Old Trafford at the moment. It's then Liverpool have a slightly bigger chance of making the top four, but I still don't think it's a huge chance. I think more realistically, we're looking at Europa League or the Europa Conference League next season. Yeah, I think you struggle to see it. I think this week was always going to decide where Liverpool finish. If Liverpool could have got a result against Manchester City, maybe a shock victory at Stamford Bridge, and who knows, had they beaten Arsenal, if they do beat Arsenal, I mean, that game is still to be played, but then the situation would have looked different. Even a draw at Man City, win at Stamford Bridge and beat Arsenal at home, then, you're looking at a good chance of at least competing for the top four. Now, you're going to have to rely on a lot of teams slipping up. I mean, Liverpool right now are in 8th place. So you are relying on plenty of teams to slip up ahead of you to make that top four. And I think that makes it a very difficult challenge.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like what I said a few moments ago. Even if, as you said, the teams above Liverpool slip up repeatedly, you really can't see Liverpool putting a string of wins together. They maybe win one, draw the next one, lose the one after that, then another win. There's too much that needs to go in Liverpool's favour. A, they need to start putting wins together, and B, they need to rely on the teams above them dropping multiple points. And you really can't see either at this point happening, can you?
Yeah, I mean, the one advantage, the one slight positive is I think Liverpool's games are skewed to home games now. So there's 6 home games left and 4 away games. And obviously Liverpool tend to do better at home. So that's a slight advantage. But then I look at the away games and I think it's West Ham, Leeds United, Southampton. These are the kind of teams Liverpool have been slipping up against time and time again. Like you mentioned, they do brilliantly at home against Manchester United and then lose to Bournemouth, and they've lost to Nottingham Forest as well away from home, and they lost to them at times when these teams were bottom of the league or there or thereabout in terrible form. So yeah, again, I think that's going to be a challenge as well. I think particularly Southampton on the last day away from home. That's the kind of team who might already be relegated by that point, but Liverpool might just slip up against them.
And do you think there are any positives that we could take from last night? Was there any players that came in that impressed you, or do you think it was just kind of more of the same kind of tepidness as you kind of alluded to earlier over the last couple of games, performances for the last even before the international break? Was there anyone that stood out, or was everybody just kind of much of a muchness?
Yeah, I think that Alisson has always been the standout performer. Other than that, I can't really think of anything. I think Konate did okay in the left side of centre back role, but I think the main positive for Liverpool is these sort of performances eventually will or should definitely create a reaction in the boardroom, and it might wake up a few people working behind the scenes to make big investments for Liverpool in the summer. And I think, looking at it positively, if Liverpool don't make the Champions League, I think there's going to be a big reaction in terms of investment, and that's definitely a positive because Liverpool do need that, and I think there does need to be a wake up call at the club. So even though it's going to be bitterly disappointing, it might just be what Liverpool need at this point. They might just need that wake up call, because if you do make the top four, then they'll be like, I think that's what happened in the 2020-21 season, when an Alisson header sort of got Liverpool over the line in the end, and it seemed like everything was fine. But really, even at that point, you could see there were a few problem areas for sure at Liverpool, particularly in midfield, not just in the defensive department. Liverpool made it to the top four then. There wasn't that much investment. Obviously, we saw a great subsequent season, but again, this season, we're seeing the decline, and I think the people at the club just need to sort of wake up to that, and they might need that sort of reaction of Liverpool not making the Champions League. They might need that wake-up call.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, I think it could be a blessing in disguise in a way. I think maybe perhaps Liverpool failing to make the top four, and it could make those, as you say, working behind the scenes, realise, right, we kind of need a squad revamp, a major revamp, not just one or two signings, but multiple. It needs a proper reboot this summer. So it could be a blessing in disguise, because I think a lot of the players have kind of stagnated at Liverpool, I think, over the last couple of years. And I think, I don't know how you feel, but I do feel like this summer, missing out in the Champions League, obviously you miss out on the lucrative Champions League money and the prestige of playing in the Champions League, but it may actually do Liverpool well in the longer term, because you can clear out some of the deadwood, bring in, several new faces, and the squad kind of gets that, injection of youth and new faces that it desperately needs at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's the common saying, taking one step to take two steps forward. Sometimes you need to do that. And especially with Liverpool, they have one of the oldest squads in the Premier League at the moment. So you definitely need a bit of a refresh and start to build for the future again, start to rebuild. And I think that's what's going to need to be done. And, maybe that wouldn't be the case if Liverpool make the Champions League, because FSG can look and say, okay, we're making our money back. We're going to be in the Champions League. We're going to make all this money. But if Liverpool don't make it, then FSG will have to think, actually, we need Liverpool to be financially successful, and that means we need Liverpool to be successful on the pitch. And how do we do that? By investing in the transfer market like they did previously. And I think that's going to have to be the case this summer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that'll wrap us up for today. Thankfully, Liverpool won't have to play Chelsea again this season, because the last 4 games between these two sides have been 0-0 in 90 minutes. So thankfully, there's no more Liverpool and Chelsea games for the rest of the season. But that'll do us for today. Thank you, Ben. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon.